Welcome back to another episode of the Suspended Podcast.
Hello.
Today we're going to be talking about, well, first we're going to address the elephant in the room, okay? It's probably one of the most talked about things going on right now, rightfully so, because what happened was terrible, scary, but
Yes.
go ahead, take the floor.
Well, I guess we'll just jump right into it.
Mhm.
Nat and I were talking a little bit about it before, but obviously I'm sure everyone knows he had lost a very big celebrity over this past week. Liam Payne from One Direction.
Yeah, Liam Payne.
Unfortunately passed away in Buenos Aires.
In, was it Portugal? No, not Portugal. I forgot. Argentina.
Yes,
It was in
Argentina. He
Mhm.
was seeing Niall's concert.
Okay.
But they had found that cause of death was from falling of 3 stories from his hotel balcony.
That's crazy.
25 injuries he sustained after the autopsy was done. They found injuries in external and internal hemorrhaging to his chest, thorax. Basically, like the complete front of his body was completely broken.
Oh, so he must have fallen flat face first.
Yeah, so they think he was either unconscious or just really inebriated. That he didn't have time to like brace himself for the fall.
Oh my gosh.
There was a police 911 call that was called on him.
Oh, really?
Yes, from the hotel, saying that he was being very like they
Abrupt?
were saying he was intoxicated and he
okay.
was being like very hostile, like breaking things in his in the hotel room and all this stuff. And he broke his laptop, like the TV was broken. There was drugs found on the table. When they like,
who called the police?
probably one of the hotel staff downstairs.
Okay, it was one of the hotel staff.
Apparently after officers responded, he had already died. So that's why it's very like interesting and mysterious about that whole thing. It's just really eerie to hear that was like his cause of death was falling 3 stories.
Right.
He fell to his death essentially, and that's like the heartbreaking thing, you know.
Right.
And
Because you would never it was like the least thing I would have expected. Man was only 31.
I know.
He was only he just started his 30s.
Yeah.
It's
And
crazy.
It's really sad because the world was kind of in a mixed kind of feeling about him.
Oh, really?
Yes,
talk about
because he just had made some really poor decisions in the past, like few years, like where he went on a podcast and he was basically doxxed. Like he was like basically being fed like all this like false attention to get him to keep talking. And he basically was just saying some really poor things about his former bandmates and about the band, and how he was supposed to be the leader and like the face of what like the whole band and stuff. And it just was like rubbed people the wrong way, especially like OG One Direction fans like myself. So like it definitely rubbed people the wrong way. So it definitely.
Would you say it rubbed you the wrong way when it
did.
came out? Okay.
It did, because I was like, why would he say such things? It kind of hurts.
Your friends,
hurts,
like
yeah,
the
and it
people
almost
you
like
come up
ruins
with.
the whole facade, I guess, you want to build up about One Direction in your eyes. And then to hear that is almost like
it's almost
they
like
didn't-
how
they
you know,
didn't have
'cause
fun.
when you're
Like-
so young and you're watching them
like
and
you think
you think they're just
happy.
besties, like they're so like close and tight and like you know, like they could
Exactly.
never be broken apart, basically.
Right. And that's how essentially he was
Mm-hmm.
claiming, putting it out there to be. And he also was battling at the time with drugs and alcohol. So like these people knew it and took advantage of him.
Oh,
And
okay.
it wasn't right. And eventually.
Wait, when you say they took advantage of it, like because of his drug and alcohol abuse, like what do you mean they took advantage of it? Like how?
he was drinking on the podcast.
Oh, okay. Like they shouldn't have let him drink on the podcast.
Like, yeah, I guess that, or at least like maybe would have just like, they weren't drinking.
Right.
But
Like why was he?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then like they were just like asking him questions to essentially egg him on, like, oh really? Like of course they would, like
Oh,
like,
I'm seeing,
like
okay,
giving
okay,
like
okay.
feeding into all this, like
Feeding into
wow,
the
we're getting a
drama.
lot of drama from this guy.
Oh,
We need to
okay.
keep asking him more bullshit questions essentially.
Mm.
And
Not
the reason
good,
why I'm
yeah.
not going to say the name is because he doesn't deserve any type of attention whatsoever. He's a scum. So it was really sad to see him get taken advantage of that way too. But it just essentially put a little bit of more tension between the boys, I feel like.
Okay.
And
I could see that.
You know, it was a lot of he said, she said, a lot of the words thrown back and forth between the boys and stuff like that.
Has he ever come out after that podcast saying like, hey guys, I know what I said, but let me try to fix this?
I think he did.
Oh, okay.
I'm not entirely sure. Like, my memory's so not well with this type of stuff.
It's okay.
But
it's all good. It's okay. If we don't get every single detail, it's okay.
Like,
if y'all really want to know, go ahead and do your own research and figure it out, you know.
I'm sure he did. And most of these people probably, like, that are One Direction fans probably do know exactly what happened.
Okay.
So
we'll let you guys sound off in the comments.
And so he started, like, all of them just started making their own music. But before that, like,
it's interesting.
It's so heartbreaking. Like, going back to Zayn's post, like Louis' post was even more heartbreaking.
Oh, what was his?
It was very long.
Oh, okay.
He had posted it.
So we're gonna try to summarize it a bit.
Yeah, essentially saying just how he was such a good person. He was so smart and just so musically talented. And he was like a brother. And he did make a promise that he was going to be a good uncle to his son there, which broke my heart. Because like, it's just so sad to hear these things and how they were saying, I wish I had another chance to say goodbye. Harry said something too, how he's heartbroken. Like, Niles,
they spent a lot of time together since they were kids.
My God, since
like
they
their
were
fundamental times in their lives as children, as kids,
everything together.
They grew up in that space, and it's really sad.
They started out together. Like, they were, they all auditioned individually, and then they put the 5 boys together.
So they individually picked these guys to be in a group together to sing?
Together, and then to put them through as a group instead of single artists.
Oh, okay. And then that's how they came to be.
Yes, so...
Interesting.
After that, they started, like, when they became a group together, they didn't really know each other, but they said they instantly just, like, clicked. Like, all of them. And they were really good as a group. And they sang...
sorry, I don't mean to...
Yeah.
But my question is, so the people... the judges or whatever from X Factor, their whole plan the whole time was to make like a group?
No, I think it was just like an idea, because they have group singers. Like, they have a group, like each judge will like have like essentially like a, I wouldn't say a genre, but like how, depending, like if it was like female artists, male artists, like groups.
Oh,
like,
okay.
It was basically set like that.
Oh,
so
okay,
like, there was various groups, but they would only obviously be competing against other groups.
Right.
So, oh my God, the X Factor hasn't been on in so long. I miss it.
I remember seeing a few.
Yeah, I miss it. But this was the UK one.
So they worked together as a group to competing in the other groups in X Factor.
Yes.
And they ended up winning?
No.
Oh, they ended up losing.
So they were runner-ups. They were the second runner-ups, and they lost to this one girl, Rebecca Ferguson.
Oh, okay. Where is she now?
Probably still singing, I guess.
Oh, okay.
I wonder if she has said anything. I'll have to look that up after.
Maybe.
If anybody has, let me know if they know.
You detectives out there, go ahead.
So she won, and a lot of people are actually really upset because
they wanted them to win.
They were like getting really popular, even in just being in the X Factor. Like, they developed even a fandom.
Oh, just through X Factor.
Yes,
people liked their performance.
Yes, people were like wanting their autograph still. Like,
wow,
and while they were on the X Factor, they made these things called video diaries.
Oh, okay.
And these video diaries are things they posted on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Where they would like essentially talk about the week that they had.
Really?
And they became so big, like, because they were goofballs. Like,
and
that was so funny.
Oh, so that's kind of how they just started. That's how they got their fandom up, just kind of posting on their own
and
social about being on the X Factor and stuff like that.
Basically.
Oh, that's so interesting.
And they would sit on these stairs, and Louis was probably the most goofiest guy on there, and it was so funny. They would just talk, they would just goof around and just laugh, and it was hilarious to watch.
That's cool.
So then
that's so interesting. I never would have thought that's kind of how they like Go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's so
Yeah.
funny. They say so many iconic lines.
My whole thing with the like One Direction, I thought it was just like they were just best friends for a long time and they all just decided to like become a group.
The cool thing is they had no idea who they were.
They didn't.
Like,
Yeah,
they didn't.
right.
They all were different from different areas of England too.
Oh,
so
wow. So they kind of just saw how they were at the X
and
Factor and they decided let's just stick together.
Yeah, so because they were doing so successful, and so I remember when they got voted off, they asked Zayn said this isn't the last you'll see of One Direction.
Oh wow!
So then Simon signed them.
Oh okay,
and they came out with What Makes You Beautiful, and then blew up from there.
It blew and like
up.
I'm not a One Direction stan, but I just like that song.
Even if you don't know One Direction, you know One Direction.
Literally, like oh my god, I don't even know. Like that song affected my life in ways I didn't even expect it to, and like not because I listened to them. It's just because they were so.
It's just associated with a memory. Like it's just everywhere. Yes, they were
like,
everywhere. They blew up instantly. Like they were literally compared to the Beatles.
That's
like
crazy.
As far as
and
like fandom, sold over 70 million records. Like that's insane.
70 million.
Yes.
What the heck?
I know.
That's crazy, and I'm still like shocked.
Multiple world tours. Like,
but it makes sense.
They were insane.
It makes sense.
Insane. It was amazing, and I was so lucky to be a part of like that time because. I got bullied for it too, but I didn't care.
Sister, were you guys both like One Direction?
My sister was a little bit.
I'm like stans.
My sister was a little bit, but not as big as I was. I used to listen to their albums on my CD player every night. During school, like every night before I would fall asleep to it essentially.
It's cute because like I see myself in that too, but with like Michael Jackson, like Lady Gaga, like
literally.
It's so like, oh my god, am I gonna cry?
Don't cry.
Like it's just crazy.
It's just
to see
nostalgic.
How, like it's exactly. And when you okay, we're gonna get a little sad here now, but like like growing up listening to artists like that, and like those are your like I said, like those are like your core, like that's how do I explain it? Like those years of youth are like your foundation of like who you are today.
100%. Like they were my childhood.
They were your childhood, and
to
see that someone of your childhood kind of, unfortunately
leave this
passes
world
away,
like
it's like a little bit of you passes away too, or a little bit of your childhood.
It's like a piece of your childhood has crippled away because essentially you've already lost them when they disbanded, and now you lose one of them, and it almost gives this confirmation that even if they were to reunite, it just will never be the same.
Of course.
And that's the most troubling and most heartbreaking thing, and I can't even imagine how the boys feel right now. Like no one, I don't think anyone besides his family and them are gonna. We can't imagine.
Yeah, we can never understand
how they
what
feel.
they're going through.
Like
it's tough.
The boys were with each other since they were kids. They experienced this whole life of like the rich and famous together. They weren't alone, and
that's sorry.
No, you're good. And like after they dropped What Makes You Beautiful, and they had like the whole tour, the Up All Night tour, the Take Me Home tour, oh my gosh,
a lot of tours.
So many tours. Midnight Memories, On the Road Again.
It's crazy. Like seeing, it's interesting to see, because like I said, I don't really listen to one. I've never really listened to One Direction, but it was so interesting to see. Like I know we were talking about this off the pod, just to see all the like inactive Instagram accounts that I've like people from like high school or middle school that I've never they never post
to come out and say something.
Come out and say something about that.
I'm telling you, this is like another global shock.
Yeah, it is a global shock for a lot of people, and I mean, I understand because when you really. Music brings people together. That's all I gotta say. Okay?
I agree.
And to see people talk about it and in depth too, like not to put anybody on blast. I'm not gonna name any names, but like two girls come to mind when I think about it because I see them post. I'm not kidding. I'm literally not even kidding. Like every single day, ever since they found out about his passing, they would post every single day on their story about them, and they'll be like, oh my god, like I met my friends through them. I've gone to so many of their concerts. I can't believe this. And like, they're actually heartbroken. Rightfully
And
so, though. I mean,
that's rightfully
I
so,
understand.
because when you said I met my friends through them, that is exactly like how most of these One Direction fangirlies met each other. They made Instagram accounts.
Yes.
Like, I remember like all of like this famous handles on Twitter. Like when that was big, like all of the, like, I can't even remember some of them. Like, dude, there were so many famous ones.
Can we get into like the I'm sorry. Okay. Can we get into no? Okay, there was a part of like the One Direction fandom though that they would get into detail about certain things, and it's like fan fiction.
Oh yeah,
like,
I mean, look at the after.
So we were gonna talk a little bit about like the fan fiction era of One Direction. We'll just touch lightly on it. It's just interesting to see, like, you know, I had friends back in like middle school that were very much loved One Direction, and the fan fiction was just funny, very in detail, if you will, and no it's engraved into my memory. I can never like not think about that. Well, you know what I mean.
You know what? I was just trying to explain to her about the After series. That was like one of the biggest books that kind of like blew up on fan fiction by Anna Todd.
Okay.
And Harry was not too happy about that one, but
he wasn't.
Yeah, it blew up into a movie.
Wow.
And then like 2-3 more movies came out or something, but I stopped after like the third one because I was really disappointed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're not that good.
What do you mean, like it was based on them though? Like based on One Direction?
No, just Harry.
Oh, it was just.
But
based on
the guys
Harry.
in One Direction are still involved in the fan fiction one. But then she had to change their names, obviously.
Oh,
but the whole synopsis of the book is that this girl who is very goody two shoe, very quiet, reserved, goes to college, and her roommate is like this.
Harry Styles.
No.
Oh, okay.
Her roommate is like this lesbian, like.
Okay.
Well, in the movie, she's a lesbian, but she's not really a lesbian in the show.
Okay.
I mean, in the book.
In the book?
But she meets this, like, kind of, like, badass chick girl. Like, she has tattoos and piercings and dyed hair. And her first encounter with, like, Harry, but his name is Hardin in the book.
Okay.
Is,
both H? Okay.
Yeah. Is he's waiting in her room, like, when she walks in after she gets home out of the shower, like she's in a towel.
Okay.
And
he like is just in a room. He like broke into her room.
He's chilling in the room because he's waiting for his. He's friends with her roommate.
Oh, okay, okay.
So they're like a whole group, like him in the group or whatever. But he's like an asshole.
Oh, okay.
Like he's a real asshole. Like he's like
not a nice guy.
Yeah, he's a fuck boy, but he's like so mean. Like he's just a dick.
Okay.
And you know. That's what every girl likes. And there's like this girl he's like messing around with in the group, and she's a bitch, and like she's mean.
She's falling in love with the bad boy.
Yeah, she's mean to like the new girl who's like the main character, the quiet, reserved one. And so her roommate tries to bring her out a lot around her group.
Okay.
So like things just get interesting because he ends up like wanting her, and like he doesn't do relationships, and I don't want to
commitment issues.
I don't want to spoil it for people if they want to read it.
How long has this book been out?
It's been out for a while.
Okay, then spoil it.
Okay. But
interesting. Yeah. So let's go back. You said that Harry didn't like actual Harry Styles when he found out about it. He wasn't happy about it. Why was he not happy?
Just a little weirded out.
Oh, okay. So it's not like he would like consented to this book being come out. It just came out, and he's like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
I would be weirded out too, though. I'd be like,
I know, I don't blame him, but it was a good book.
Okay,
come for me, I don't care.
It does sound good though. It's an interesting story.
But
I hate when they mess up the movies. It's like,
me too.
Keep it the same.
I know.
Why is it so hard? Keep it the same.
I know, because I was literally clenched my fist like Arthur.
It
was Arthur clenched fists when I was watching the movie. I
get it
really quickly about DW when she was talking to his friend.
Who's DW?
Yeah,
who's
his
DW?
Sister.
Whose sister?
Arthur's sister.
Oh, okay. See, okay, now you're gonna lose me. I only know the meme. I've never watched Arthur. I only know the meme
Well,
of the
do you
clenching
know
fist.
the meme where
he's clenching his fist?
No, there's
or where she's like,
no, she's like, I have an idea. Why don't you go home?
I probably do. It's somewhere in the back of my mind. I just can't think of it.
She's like trying to essentially tell this girl to get out of my house.
She's like, leave.
Literally.
Get the fuck out. It's like Patrick. That one I know. I have an idea. Let's leave.
But yeah, really sad.
sad.
Still can't believe that it's real. I was thankful enough to be able to go to one of the concerts.
Yes. And we're gonna insert a clip of when you guys were like at his concert, but it was his birthday, right?
It was Liam's birthday, and we sang happy birthday to him, and it was during the Midnight Memories tour 2014, August 20th. But it was so much fun. Oh my god, it almost like reignited like my love for them, and it made me remember why I loved them so much, because I did take a little break from them in my years of kind of going through my transition from middle school to high school. I kind of got a little.
It's very common. It's common. Yeah,
but then it just reignited that love that I had for them, and I kind of followed them since then. To go into the next topic of what we wanted to, in light of spooky season. But yes, our next topic into our whole spooky theme for this month is some mysterious true crime stories that have kind of gotten us thinking, some things that we have like wanted to talk about that we found interesting.
I was gonna say, like, I want to dive into some of the, well, yours was the topic that you wanted to talk about was unsolved for a long time, is now solved. Well, not really,
partially solved, because they still don't know who did it.
We still don't know who did it, but we know who the person was that was affected. And for the topics that I want to talk about, which are just two of them, they're just two unsolved cases or mysteries that
which
have happened.
Really cool.
Huh?
They seem really cool.
Thank you. I kind of wanted to dive into something that wasn't so mainstream. They are recognized, like people have talked about them, but maybe not as like much. So in light of spooky season, I kind of wanted to dive into these unsolved cases because I think they're very interesting.
And by cool, I mean interesting, like she says. I don't mean cool like, oh my god, that was cool. So people don't get that twisted.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Like I'm not thinking that the crime itself is cool.
Oh yeah, no, the crime itself is definitely not cool.
The stories are interesting, the ones that I've never heard these stories before.
Yes. And that, exactly. So for one of the first unsolved mysteries till this day, I wanted to talk about I don't want to butcher their names, but it's the Hinterkaifeck murders. It's one of the most chilling unsolved cases in German criminal history, which really, it happened a long time ago. It happened in 1922. Like I said, the case is still unsolved, but there were a few victims that were involved. It was a father, mother, widowed daughter, and a younger daughter, and then a little baby, a 2-year-old. And a maid too, which we'll get into that.
Interesting.
What makes this story so interesting, or this case so interesting, is that obviously, besides the fact that it was never unsolved, this story took place in like a farm, which was, pretty secluded. Hold on, I gotta bring up the notes. I can't do this. Okay, the unsettling clues before the murder. Okay, so footprints in the snow. So there was footprints leading towards the house, but there were no footprints returning. The family heard unexpected sounds coming from the attic, but when they would search the home, there was nothing there. There were missing keys, and some of the objects in the house were out of place, but I'm assuming that was probably just like the kids that were just like misplacing things, if I were to guess what that was. And then the new maid that had quit. So the previous maid had resigned, claiming that the house was haunted, and Maria started working the day of the murder. So literally her first day working as a maid, it's believed that the killer lured each victim into the barn one by one and murdered them using a pickaxe or a mattock. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
So they were all found in the same place?
Yeah, they were all found stacked on top of each other, besides the kid and the maid.
Where were they?
They were, I'm not exactly sure where she was, but I know they were separated. They weren't together. It was just the other 4: the husband, the wife, the daughter, and the 2 daughters, I think.
Why would they I wonder why that person would separate the baby and the maid.
I don't know.
Maybe they were in different areas?
Yeah, definitely. I think the baby was in his like room, or like
where
crib.
was the maid?
I'm not sure. Inside the house, Maria and Joseph were murdered while in their rooms. Maria's body was found in her bed and Joseph was killed in his crib. There we go. Yeah, but what makes it weird is that they're saying that the killer likely stayed at the farm because numerous neighbors reported seeing smoke coming from the chimney and animals that were being still fed after several days of the murders. So they're thinking that it was somebody that they either knew or was like a jealous lover, or somebody that just goes around killing people, basically.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's interesting because there are some unanswered questions that they still don't know. Which one being who left the footprints? Why was the family lured one by one into the farm? And why did the killer stay in the house for several days after the murder? And what was the motive? They said that robbery seemed unlikely as valuables were left untouched.
Do you think it was maybe someone just trying to reside in somewhere?
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it was just some nut job that just wanted to chill, like have a place to stay before he decided, okay, I need to leave.
Who found them?
The neighbors, because they noticed how the farm was just really quiet for a few days. So they had gone in and did their own digging and they found the people there.
That's terrible.
It is.
It's really scary. What year was this?
1922.
Wow, and they never found nothing.
Nothing.
That's so bizarre.
It is. Oh, and I also read that they tried to like open up the case again to see if there was anything else that they could find, but nothing has been found, nothing new. So it remains an unsolved case.
I mean, just the act of such brutality and violence against such like even just like a kid, like, oh my god, a baby. That's terrible. Like, I can't imagine what the neighbors walked into. Quite a scene. And for that person to be living there for several days is even more eerie.
So they were just like, I'm just gonna, besides all the people just chilling eating, they found that bread was eaten. The farm animals were like being fed afterwards.
I think that's why I'm like more convinced that it was somebody trying to just find like somewhere to stay.
Me too.
And then he's probably someone who just is a psychopath, has psychopathic tendencies, and probably just came across that house and was like, no, I'm gonna stay here for a while.
I'm gonna chill here. Oh, this is nice. You know, like, let me cosplay as a farmer real quick. Like,
no, for real.
That's what it gives me, because it's just crazy. And it's crazy how it's never been solved. So
wow,
that was the first one. And then the next one is not really anything like whoa, did you hear that? My throat just made a sound. This next one isn't scary because nobody was like murdered, nobody was killed, but it's just more just weird and eerie, and people don't understand why this person did what they did, and they still don't know who this person is. And this one is the Max Headroom incident. A bizarre 1987 broadcast hijacking in Chicago. Represent. I love Chicago. I'm kidding. I really don't like Chicago. Where a masked figure interrupted TV signals, leaving authorities puzzled to this day. So this happened in November 22nd of 1987. This unknown individual disguised as the character Max Headroom, and I'll insert a picture. Hopefully I don't get copyrighted, YouTube, please.
Interesting.
Love you. Hijacked 2 television stations, leaving viewers and authorities baffled. Despite investigations, the identity of the person responsible remains a mystery to this day. So there was 2 hijackings. One was just like, I want to say it was only like a 30-second like interruption where this guy is just pretending to be this guy, Max Headroom. He's just kind of like swaying back and forth and just like looking at the camera until the actual news channel was it a news channel? It was WGN TV channel 9. I don't know. So it was about 30 seconds of just him kind of just standing there, not really saying much. I think like mumbling weird things, and then it was cut back off. So the original channel was able to get like control again, and they switched it back to like original programming or whatever they say. And then the next one happened at 11:15 p.m. During a broadcast of the science fiction series Doctor Who, Channel 11, a PBS affiliate. And this interruption lasted about 90 seconds. And there were a few things that this guy or woman had said, which was one of them being calling WGN TV sportcaster Dan Rowan a frickin' liberal, and then humming the theme of the TV show Clutch Cargo. Now, I don't know what that is, but it's weird.
What? That's so weird.
And then he was holding up a can of Pepsi and mockingly reciting Max Headroom's famous slogan, "Catch the wave." And then, at the very end, the masked figure, this is kind of funny, the masked figure then mooned the camera, exposing his bare buttocks, and spanked by someone off screen with a fly swatter, saying, "They're coming to get me." And there's footage of this online. You can see this. You can see the interruptions and the hijacking. So
what does the costume look like?
I'll show you.
Is it creepy?
It's weird. I think it's friggin'.
And they never found out.
This is like an actual like footage of the hijacking.
And they never found out.
They never found out who the man was or woman. They never could figure it out. There's a few theories out there saying that this guy was just like a prankster who's just pranking TV, but they're also saying how, you know, to do something like that, to hijack, is very hard and not something easy to do, especially back then.
I can't imagine.
Yeah. And
oh my God. That's really
they were saying that
creepy.
it was technically sophisticated, so it was definitely planned out, carefully planned out. And yeah, we can get into a little bit of like how they did it, but basically it just says that they needed a strong high-powered transmitter and technical knowledge to break into the broadcast frequencies, something very difficult to achieve, especially at the time, like I mentioned earlier. So yeah, it's interesting how that like happened, or why they would do that. Like, why would you do that? Like, what would you get out of that?
What was the message that you were trying to say?
Right.
With doing such random acts.
I don't know. But there's a lot of conspiracy theories, a lot of things. They even like, I think they've even they've come out with documentaries and books and TV shows referring to the hijacking.
That's interesting. That's a little creepy.
It is creepy, and you can literally look it up. You can see it. It's weird. Violating federal broadcasting laws, which may explain why the perpetrators never came forward. Okay, so basically they're saying that maybe that's why they never came forward, because they knew that they could get into deep trouble for doing something like that. Which rightfully so, because why are you doing scaring me? I just want to watch Doctor Who.
Why are you scaring me? Oh my God, those poor kids.
I literally, like little me, I would be like, I'd probably start crying. Why is his buttocks out?
Who's this man on the TV?
Who's slapping him? They were saying that investigators and local police were immediately involved, but no arrests were ever made.
Well, I guess in light of Halloween coming up,
yes,
this is a story that kind of revolves around it, considering that this happened on Halloween.
Oh.
Yeah.
We did, huh?
It did. They discovered her body on Halloween.
Which I want to say, like, this one's really interesting, and I never heard about it until you brought it up.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm going to talk about this, and I was like...
I actually listened to this podcast, again, true crime on Crime Junkie, like maybe a year or so ago. And it was one that definitely stuck with me. So I looked it up, and recently, like 40 years later, they were actually able to identify her.
Which is crazy.
Still not have yet to find the killer, but they had been able to identify her 40 years later. This happened on October 31st, 1979, that they discovered a body in the concrete culvert. She was a young woman, about 5'9", they said, in height. She was white. About our height. Yeah, white, and she had like an auburn orangey tint to her hair. They found she was stripped of nothing but just a pair of orange socks on. So they identified her as just the orange sock doe, because they never were able to identify her due to like lack of either DNA, just evidence. We even came to find out later that she was never reported missing. So it was really even hard.
Which I have a bone to pick, and we'll get to that later.
Apparently she had run away, or she had at least like left home at a young age, not a young age, but around like the age of 20, around 22. She left home, and she started to work in two areas. She was originally in Georgetown, Texas, and then she went to what is it? How do you pronounce it? I'm not familiar with a lot of the areas in Texas, but she went to Amarillo. she left in 1977 and worked there in that area for about a year. 1978, she worked at an assistant living home and a Ramadan Inn. She was 23-year-old Deborah Jackson.
Yes.
Which
40 years later, they didn't find out her name until.
Yes. So, they just found out her name. Yeah. And the reason why they were able to find out her identity was due to her sister.
Oh, really?
Her sister saw a sketch of the Jane Doe. Maybe you can put in a picture of what she looked like. And she said that it looked eerily like her sister that they just never were able to come in contact with.
Okay.
They had thought that she had just left home and that she was doing fine. They have male DNA under her fingernails. They are just yet to connect it to anybody. Henry Lee Lucas, the infamous serial killer who claimed over like 100 lives, claimed that death, but then later recanted it.
Yeah.
Because he was known as the confession killer anyway. So it was really, you had to take what he said with a grain of salt at that point. I mean, the reason why they recanted it and stopped his actual execution by George W. Bush was because they had been able to connect him in Florida at the time of the murder. So it was impossible that would have happened.
So it was like, it's crazy because I guess the guy, what's his name?
Henry Lee Lucas,
he would confess to these murders because they think because he wanted better prison time.
Yeah.
He wanted like better
he just
treatment.
thought he was getting better like treatment from the cops and that they were being buddy with him because he was feeling if the more I like confess, the more they'll like give me things.
Yeah, the more.
And that for a while kind of went on like that. I watched the documentary on him on Netflix, The Confession Killer, and it kind of looked like that. Police, the sheriff's department in that area kind of fell through as far as like trying to convict him of actual murders when he was convicted for just his mother and two other women.
Crazy.
So, and he wasn't that intelligent. He had like they did say he had like the mindset of like a child, essentially. Like he really wasn't that educated.
Okay. Wow.
So
how old was he? It doesn't say on here.
He's older.
Yeah.
He's an older guy. But
yeah, they said that he just, the credibility was just not there. So him confessing to like murdering this woman just wasn't there.
Yes. Even though
which is crazy.
It would have been brought some comfort to the family, but
right.
They found her in this concrete culvert on I-35 north of FN 972 in Georgetown. Essentially, the DNA Jane Doe project was the one that was able to ID the victim, Deborah Jackson. They're still technically they were able to ID her 2018, 2019. Wow. So they're still investigating this male DNA that's under her fingernails. So the case has really made an impact on overall just like cold cases in general. It was something that the sheriff's department was really proud of, to be able to help find some closure for these
after 40 years.
And to say that they're not even done must feel really nice to know that they're still looking out for witnesses. They say if you know anything or had any idea of who she is, like just call us. Like they want to find, they have assigned like this cold case unit to find the killer.
Interesting. Well, that's good. At least they didn't. We're just like, oh, okay, we're never gonna know. They're still on the lookout.
Right.
Anyways, okay, well, that's the end of that. I hope you guys enjoyed that. It's a little bit of a spooky, October-y topics.
Yeah. Moving on.
I don't know what else to say about that.
Yeah. Moving on to, I'm sure we'll have some more like stories and things to talk about next week. For sure.
So I hope you guys found this interesting, because I found it interesting and it was fun to talk about.
And if you guys know any like interesting facts about like the cases that we touched on, like
for sure,
that'd be cool to hear about or read about too.
Yeah, let us know if you guys have any suggestions. Let us know
about
and
cases
we'll talk about it.